Well, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Dr. John McClain, and I'm continuing this series under the playlist of short answers to tough questions. And I hope that you'll click on the playlist and see that I have many categories of Bible and theology and Bible study methods for you to benefit from and enjoy. But the question today is, when does an embryo become a child? And we could even include in that the idea of a fertilized egg. Although, as we know, not every egg is fertilized, and not every fertilized egg is embedded for growth or birth. And so by embryo, I mean a fertilized egg that has been embedded. And you want to also look up on my YouTube site what I have said about abortion also. I'm very pro-life, and I believe that life begins with the fertilization of the egg, and all the DNA to produce a human being is there. But I'm focusing here on the embryo in the sense of a fertilized egg that is embedded in the womb, the uterus, and has the opportunity to grow into a full child. Now, the Bible doesn't say a lot about this. It says a lot about the God working in the hearts of people and lives, like the psalmist David and Paul and Jeremiah and Job and others. And so I'm certainly aware of and acknowledge God's work with us and in us and in the whole creative process. And again, I would point you to my posting on abortion. But this is more specific. In a sense, when does life begin? When does body, soul, and spirit begin? And the three passages that I know of that address this directly: Ecclesiastes chapter 6, verses 3 through 6. And as I go through these, I am not totally, what I say, dogmatic on this. I'm very open to learning more, but I am a translator. I have studied and taught Greek, Aramaic, and Hebrew for many years, and do feel confident in the sources that God has provided through what I use, Logos Bible software, as well as all of the other databases that are accessible through Logos. So Ecclesiastes 6, 3 through 6. If a man fathers 100 children and lives many days, and notice, again, anytime you see a word in italics like this, it's not in the original text that we have, the best text that we have, but it is certainly implied. So if a man fathers 100 and lives many years, however many they be, but his soul, meaning his life, the personality of it all, is not satisfied with good things, and he does not even have a proper burial, then I say, better the miscarriage than he. Now, the Hebrew word miscarriage here, I believe, refers to a non-viable child, a non-viable embryo. And so I would use the word child with reservation. The same Hebrew word is used of folds of material or folds or excess from plantation that is discarded because it is not viable and it is not of use. So he says, Solomon, I believe the author, better the miscarriage, the non-viable miscarriage from a woman than he, because it comes in futility, the miscarriage, and it goes into obscurity, and its name is covered in obscurity. Even though it be given a name, it seems to be indicating that there is not personhood here. It never sees the sun. It never knows anything. It is better off than he, the man who fathers 100 children, but cannot find satisfaction in his soul. Even if the other man lives, the man lives 1,000 years twice, 2,000, and does not enjoy good things. Do not all go to one place, referring, I believe, to the grave. So I think Ecclesiastes, I mean, the most important thing that Ecclesiastes is teaching is found in chapters 11 and 12, which is remember your creator in the days of your youth. Remember that your creator is going to bring you into account for every action that you do. Remember life in fear and respect for God. But in light of that, Ecclesiastes, Solomon recognizes that there are miscarriages. They're very common, even in our modern medical world. And we don't have all the medical explanations as to why that happens, according to the research that I have looked into. But I want us to recognize that in my understanding of the Hebrew text, the word for miscarriage is a reference to non-viable life. Now, the next passage is in the book of Job. And in the book of Job, of course, Job is mourning and moaning, and rightfully so, for he is under spiritual attack. He's lost his family, everybody but his wife, who's of no help to him at this time. His friends are attacking him. And he says, why did I not die at birth? The Hebrew word is really in the womb. So that's something important. Why did I not die in the womb? Come forth from the womb, which is better maybe translated from the stomach or the uterus. It describes like a round cavity. And expire, or better, I think, translated die. Why did I not die at birth? Why did I not die in the womb? Why did I come forth from the womb and then die? Because he was suffering so much. Why did the knees receive me, and why the breasts that I should suck? He's wondering about life and purpose in light of everything that he has lost. For now I would have lain down and been quiet. I would have slept then. I would have been at rest with kings and with counselors on the earth who rebuild ruins for themselves, or with princes who had gold, who were filling their houses with silver, or like a miscarriage. Here again, the word non-viable, folds of material which is discarded. He was in such pain and such suffering, such spiritual sense of rejection, that he said, I would rather have died in a non-viable state than to have lived and suffered like this. I would not be as infants that never saw light. There the wicked cease from raging, and there the weary are at rest. The prisoners are at ease together. They do not hear the voice of the taskmaster. The small and the great are there, and the slave is free from his master. It seems to me that Job is attributing here a time in the womb when the embryo is not viable. And as a not viable existence, we see that he seems to indicate that if that would have been his result at birth or before birth, that there would have been no real existence for him. Had he been born, he would have had all of the experiences of the kings and the counselors of the princes, and would have then gone to the grave in personhood. The next passage, I think, gives us a little more clarity. And this is, of course, from Exodus. And I know that many of you have read Psalms 139, which so much speaks to God's intimate awareness of everything in life, from conception, from birth to death, from the cradle to the grave. And in Psalms 139, the New American Standard says, "You have seen my unformed substance." And I would translate that differently. I would say that it's a better translation, that you saw my forming substance. He talks about being knit in the womb. And so God's aware of the development of the embryo, and he is aware of a personhood there. At what point, I don't know exactly, but we do see God involved, particularly in that psalmist that is attributed, I believe, to David. And it's not some kind of unformed blob. It's a forming entity and a forming child. But again, to use the word child is difficult for me because it has not yet been born. Now, the Exodus 21:22 through 25, I think, does give us a more concrete statement about the embryo and childhood. This whole chapter is about physical injury, men fighting, people being injured. And it says, if men struggle with each other and strike a woman with child. Now, the Hebrew text doesn't say with child. It's more a woman who's pregnant, or a pregnant woman. So that the result of that struggle, where, maybe she jumps into the fight and she gets hit in the process, even assaulted, if she's pregnant, so that she gives birth prematurely. And this, I believe the Hebrew text is talking about a viable child, a child who has been in the womb long enough that the child is viable, and the child is born prematurely, but viable. Yet there is no injury. And the injury here, I believe, would be to the child. He, the one who struck the woman, shall surely be fined, as the woman's husband may demand of him, and he shall pay as the judges, that would probably be the elders of the city, as they would decide. But if there is any further injury, And this could be to the wife, but it's certainly, I believe, in the context, a referral to the child. If there is any further injury, then you shall appoint as a penalty life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. In other words, that's the standard of the law. And it doesn't demand that that happen. We need to understand that this law was to limit revenge, limit reprisal, because our tendency is we don't want to get ahead. We don't want to get even. We want to get ahead, usually in these situations. So I do think that Exodus 21 identifies a viable child within the womb as a person with rights, the rights of protection, the rights of birth. And so certainly when the embryo is viable within the womb and is born even prematurely, they certainly have body, soul, and spirit, and are protected by God. Now, again, you're going to need to see my pro-life video and how I argue back against the pro-choice and I think perverted biblical arguments as if abortion is acceptable. But these passages are the ones that I know of that speak the most to the embryo developing within the womb, and the most that I can say with certainty and clarity about a developing embryo that is not viable versus an embryo that has reached the point of viability and therefore is clearly protected and identified as one with body, soul, and spirit, in my understanding.